Some of my favorite people to work with, honestly, is first time home buyers, which is probably why I attend bridal shows. Now, there's an explanation for that, I promise. I do have a background in wedding planning, and I absolutely loved it. I was actually on TLC for weddings, and I had an absolute blast doing it. But as you can imagine, I didn't see my brides that often after because it's not like you really get return clients as a wedding planner. And if you do, I think we should all be concerned. But I did wedding planning for about 3 to 4 years and absolutely loved it. I loved the design aspect and I loved being a part of big moments. And that's one of my favorite things about my job. So when I went into real estate, it was just automatically natural that I'm like, oh my gosh, I love to make relationships. I love to make friendships. This is amazing. I'm going to have such a great time. Well, I didn't know that it would tap so deeply into my heart because of where my husband and I were at and where we've come from in such a short amount of time. Today, actually, while I'm recording this, is our 7 year date anniversary. I celebrate things like those, celebrate the small things. I think when you stop celebrating the small things, they don't seem to matter anymore. And it was a big deal. We've come a long way from those kids 7 years ago going to see Jumanji. A long way. But let's talk about tips, tricks for first time home buyers because I love to work with you guys because there's ways to make home buying possible that you never thought was. But I'd love to share a little bit about my story and how me and my husband honestly made it happen. And now we have a home, two homes, two kids, and everything within a 7 year period, which is wild. So let's jump into it and also have a sip of our espresso martini. First, let me introduce myself. Hi, my name is Demi Judd. I'm a broker associate here in Northeast Florida, and I absolutely love my job. I loved wedding planning by all means, but it was 100 hours a week away from home where now I could work, 100 hours a week at home. But the reward in this industry is amazing. And I'm not talking about the money, I'm talking about the relationships, the rich relationships you get to build. And I never imagined getting into this industry that is what I would have the opportunity to do and impact so many people's lives that I was in the exact same scenario. So let's kind of get in a time machine and go back to 2018. Oh my gosh, 2018. You guys have to understand, I really just this year found out that I'm getting old. I don't know what happened. Like I woke up from a scary, freaky Friday dream, and I was like, "Oh, I have gray hair, and I this is my problem." But I'm telling you, the 30s are great. It's gonna be great, you guys. Don't be scared of them. But 7 years ago, on February 7th, I met my husband, Logan, and we went on our first date. We went to Jumanji. If you would have told those kids what we have now, I don't think we would have believed you. I think we would have honestly probably told you to check into a psych ward because we were just some crazy kids that were bumbling around on a phone and found each other. And I literally would not replace that day for anything. We knew immediately, like, there is a saying that's like, you know when you know, and you definitely know. You definitely have that feeling that, oh my gosh, this is my person. I remember on our first date and I was like, crap. Like, I have so many dates to cancel because I was that girl. It's like, I mean, I like food. I want a free date. Why not? Um, but that just, I got out of a really bad relationship beforehand. And so finding him, it was just a whirlwind. And I was like, okay, I need to jump on this train before we get me. I got a ring in 90 days. I'm not even kidding you guys. We were engaged in 90 days. Honestly, if we're completely honest, I think we would have been married before that. But got a ring in 90 days, locked it down, and we were married within a year of knowing each other. But it was so crazy because really, honestly, I remember sitting down with his grandparents like 10 days after we met, and I was like, we're going to get married. Like, both of us said that. We booked our wedding photographer. We thought we were probably nuts. And booked our venue, everything, within like 30 days of knowing each other. Wild. Honestly, if my daughter ever came up to me and told me that, I'd be like, okay. Now I can never say that. But it was just wild. And so we met. It was a whirlwind. So fast forward 2019, we get married. And I was like, okay, let's talk to the bank and start talking about buying a home because now we're married. I'd like to live with my parents right now. Because that's how we saved money, honestly. So when we met, we got engaged, we immediately moved in with my parents, had to sleep in separate rooms, everything kosher like that. But we had to make that sacrifice in order to save money so that we could buy a house. Well, we ended up meeting with the bank right after our wedding and looking at, both credit scores, and they're like, you are never buying a home. I was devastated. Like, I don't think I could explain to you how devastating that was to hear with someone who I'm so optimistic. I'm like, yeah, we got this. And even before I was in real estate, and it was devastating. Like I was like, oh my gosh, like we can't afford a home. We're not going to buy a home. Are we going to rent? Like, what are we going to do? Are we going to move somewhere that we could afford? Because we lived in St. Johns County. He's from Putnam County. And I was like, I really don't want to move to Putnam, but if that's what it takes to get us on our feet, like, that's just what it takes. And we met with a credit advisor through one of our friends who was a real estate agent at the time. And they really helped us, like, start for where we need to go. So we started we got my husband into a Discover card. I started paying down some of my debt from college, and trying to get ourselves in the best position. It honestly was not till a year later that we could truly revisit. Just with my husband's credit and having to increase that, and then also saving money, and then we were broke. We didn't have any money. Like, it is wild. We had no money. So when brides are like, you just don't, I feel I'm shy. Don't be shy. Like, I literally made, I think, $32,000 a year. I'm sure most of you watching this think that's ridiculous because you probably make way more than that. I know what Gen Z is looking at now and like what they expect to make. And so I only made $32,000 a year, and that really was not enough to be able to purchase a property. And so it really put us in a pickle where we didn't know what to do. So we just started saving where we could. I started making ramen for dinner some nights, which my husband hated. At the time, he's like, Demi, that smells like poverty, please. Like, we can at least get us not ramen noodles. But whatever I could do to make it happen. And so we actually did end up buying our first house, our single family home in the neighborhood I grew up with, and like, which is a complete God moment that we were even able to find in the timing that we did, because we got in right before the pop, which I know a lot of people will be like, oh, well, you got in before, so you got a good deal. Yes, we got a good deal, but at the same time, like, we still had to save the money. There's still all those other factors to it. But we got our single family home. We closed March 31st of 2020. Lived in our home for a while, found out we were pregnant shortly after with our first baby. I have my stepson and then our daughter. And we were super excited, but we knew, already having her, she moved in and all her stuff came with her. And was extra then, and she's still extra now. But it just, you run out of room really fast. So about a year into being in this home, I was like, hey, I think I really want to start a career. I can't make $32,000 a year for like the future that we want. And that's when, I kind of shifted into real estate. And then July of 24, we actually just bought our second house, where now we went from 6 years ago, technically, them telling us, you will never buy a home, to 6 years later now owning two homes and having one investment property on one of our single family homes, like for our primary. And that in itself is just a huge testimony. A couple things. One, the grass is greener where you water it, 100%. But then also just a testimony of really taking the time and having the correct people in your life that are helping you strategize and make your goals possible. It can be possible. So let me go into that and how I kind of help my first time home buyers do the exact same thing. And why the heck am I doing bridal shows? Like, that's really a big question that people ask me. Even at the bridal show, they're like, what do you, oh, that's good. A little sip break. Oh, that's good. That's good stuff. So let's start off with why the heck am I doing bridal shows? Well, I want to meet you guys where you're at because, especially when you're starting to plan a wedding, yes, I'm not trying to get you more in debt, I promise. But it's a place where you are thinking of the future because you're thinking, whether it's a couple months out, a year out. Some of those brides I met were like 3 years out, which is wild. But I know sometimes to get certain venues, certain photographers that you specifically want, it may, oh Jesus, may honestly take that long to be able to book those venues. And because I absolutely loved being a wedding planner, but again, it just didn't make sense with the hours of my life and especially being a mom and the time that honestly I would want to give it. I just didn't have the time. And I was like, okay, well, there's other ways that I could be a part of their lives and do these shows. So I started doing the shows back in, I don't know, 23, September of 23, I think was my first show. And I started meeting some of these couples and like it was like literally like put me back in time to when I met my husband and just having so much doubt and not thinking it's possible, especially with everything nowadays that you're reading online saying how unaffordable homes are and how like the next generation is never going to be able to buy homes, but that's not at all accurate. Now, I will say if like you were just going by the seam of your pants, it could be a little bit more challenging, but it doesn't mean that it's not possible. There's just some things probably you would have to adjust or work on, but there's always options, always options. I'm someone who's like that. I love people who give me like obstacles and they're like, oh, this is going to be a tough one. And I was like, let's go, what you got? Because there's always a way, always a way. So when I met my first clients, Christine and Bobby, they were super, super cute couple, and they were planning to get married in December. And I was like, okay, well, where do you guys think you are? I met them at the show, so I don't like jump on their bones like that. Like we had to ease into this, just like a relationship. But I met them at the show. I was like, hey, let's grab coffee. We all grabbed coffee, and I was like, how far out do you guys think you are? And they're like, we're about a year out. And I was like, okay, whether you're ready in 2 weeks or 2 years, like I'm here to help you through that process, and I'm just here to strategize with you and to make sure that you're in the right place 2 years from now, if that's when your timeline is. So this is October-ish, we're meeting of 23. And I was like, so I know where you want to go. I know what you want to do. Now let's kind of break down what we're wanting to do with this. How much money do you make? Where are you guys at? How much money do you have saved? When is your wedding? And they're like, oh, it's in December, January-ish. We haven't really like it's gonna be something small. And I was like, okay, so you have this much and you have this much. And I was like, hold on, what's your credit scores? And found out their credit scores. And I was like, I think you qualify for USDA. If you do not know what USDA is, a USDA loan is a government backed loan, which can offer 0% down. 0% down. This would give you the option to purchase if you didn't have the down payment for the FHA loan. This is a great loan option. Of course, FHA does have some options as well for down payment assistance. It's basically the same thing. But USDA, you have to live in a rural area, so it can't be like downtown St. Augustine, downtown Jacksonville. Honestly, looking at the USDA website and finding out where those rural areas are, a lot of St. Johns County has rural areas, so it's definitely accessible and it's very easy that you guys can definitely find something. Well, in an area they were looking in, there was availability. And I was like, let me see if you guys would qualify for USDA. And they did. So I was like, okay, we just did this for shits and giggles to see if you'd even get approved. And it actually happened. And I was like, okay, you're approved. Do you want to look at homes? Like, I know that you guys are a little far off. You said you wanted 2 years. And I always like to see if you guys are able to earlier, just in case. Well, we found the perfect home for them and they closed by that December. Within a 3-month period of meeting like me at the bridal show, they closed on their home that they never thought were possible. They literally, I think they walked out paying closing costs wise because I got that covered by the seller. I think they paid about $1,500. That's it. And they own a home. So they're in their cute little single family home now. They have a baby now. It's really cute. Honestly, that's why I love it. Like, that is the reason. Like, it's more than just I'm helping a like new couple buy a home. Oh my gosh, the warm and fuzzies just of that. But then also like the wow, your family's getting built in there. Like, I always told people that like when I did weddings, I helped paint this picture of their life and their love and like this perfect everything moment in their life. And now I'm helping create walls to hang those pictures on. And it's just such a cool feeling when they're able to like not only get that home, but create home. Because it's more than just the walls that I help, them find. It's the life that happens within there and the growth and the chapters and everything that happens in that household that is so near and dear that like I get to be a part of. And I'm so blessed to have that opportunity. Ew, I'm getting emotional. Take another sip. But I'm just incredibly blessed by the relationships I get to build from this. Now, that was just one out of multiple situations that I've had for a lot of my brides that didn't know it was possible. So, some tips and tricks. If you're a new couple looking, young person just looking for themselves, solo person, anything, some tips and tricks that I would really do is one thing that really helped us. Now, this is not marketed by Discover at all, but my husband did get a Discover card to help him raise his credit. And we did the one where it's like $600 you paid in and then back and forth. And you can also do that through a bank CD as well. Um, but there's other options you have if you are entertaining like a mortgage option. If you're like, I'm about a year out, I always, when I meet with my brides, so I meet them at the show, grab coffee with them, and then I'm like, let me know if you want to do a follow up. And I was like, but it might be good if you're a year or so out to maybe get pre approved just to see what you're pre approved for or what you need to fix on your credit that we can work on. And that's always really helped. I think it's really helped bring it back for some of my clients. Some of them found out they could buy sooner than they thought. Some of them found that they could buy more than what they want. And then some people found some stuff on their credit that they wanted to get fixed before they were buying. So there's a ton of options with that. And it's just good like to look into the future. And it's a very soft credit pool. So it's not like it's going to be a hard ding on your credit. Um, and then there's a whole other thing with that I'll get back to in a second. But it's always a good strategy to have. But my husband did the Discover and it did phenomenal for him. And it did a great job and really did end up helping raise his credit. As well for myself as well. I did it and like it's crazy how much it changed my credit. Um, but things that we didn't think were possible were possible. Another thing I would definitely do is if you don't already have your budgeting and your like what you're paying for monthly figured out, definitely get that put together because you want to make sure that you're not going based on the means that you currently have and to save. Like there's no way to know how much you need to save if you don't know how much you're actually spending. Makes it a little bit more complicated. And then if you are working on your credit right now, what I would do again, I'm going to suggest it to you just as much as I suggest it to my clients is definitely maybe if you think that you're a little bit further out, talking to a local lender, or I mean, you could talk to a bank as well. There's different options there, which I'll make a video on that difference between like a local lender, a broker, and a bank because they're all very different and they all offer different options, incentives, all that fun stuff, and rates. But it doesn't hurt to actually like look into it just to see on where you're at so that you're already prepared for when it does happen. Another tip I would have is not only trying to figure out how much you can afford with the lender, but also seeing if they have a credit repair specialist. There we go. To help you with your credit repair to make sure that everything is in line with that. There's not anything that you didn't know on there. And if there are some things you're a little concerned about, they could talk to you about how to actually execute those because there's some things that are more important than others that you may not know about and that you may be paying towards something that isn't as important as, X, Y more than Z. And so they'll help kind of like put you on that tracking on where you should be paying off and what you should be paying off. Another tip that I definitely give my first time home buyers is if and when you do start looking is to really consider new construction. Only because, especially because you're a first time home buyer, most likely this will not be your forever home. Most likely. It still could be. You never know. But most likely this may not be your forever home. So searching in those areas that probably are going to gain you the most equity are going to be crucial. Now, this can't always be reality for some. My first home is off US 1 out here in St. Johns County. And, we did grow in equity. Of course, we did buy in 2020. But there's just in certain areas that growth and development is happening, which is why we're keeping it as a rental. And we're going to keep it as a rental so that obviously we have some new construction going on. So people are going to need to rent. So thinking of options like that, what I love the most is when I meet with my brides and grooms, I'm like, so you pay rent, how much do you pay? And they tell me about it. I'm like, how's your landlord? And they're like, oh God. And I was like, what if you were a landlord? What would you do? And they would tell me what they would do different. And I was like, okay, awesome. So that's my goal. I was like, my goal is that in 5 years, you call me and you're like, Demi, I want to rent out my house. So I need a property manager and I need to find my second home. And I'm going to take the equity from this home to put it in the other one. And someone else is going to pay this mortgage plus XYZ. And so that is the goal because I feel like that's missed. I feel like my generation wasn't taught it. I'm a millennial. About generational wealth and creating that for your future and for your family and how to just create passive income. Like it just wasn't taught. Like I know for my family, I mean, we literally did not have a lot of money. And oh my gosh, I remember in '08, my mom telling me that we would lose the house. And so that's not something I want my kids to hear or feel. I want to create a portfolio that not only, supports our bills, but also supports us in our future so that we do have retirement because I remember being in high school and them telling me that I'm never going to be able to retire. And I don't want to believe that. And I don't want you guys to believe that. I want that to happen for you guys. And especially because of how much I'm hearing about the like younger millennials and the Gen Zs and not being able to ever afford a home, but there is ways. So in the spots where you're looking, like I was saying, definitely places I would consider is some new construction areas because one, they're going to give you closing costs, which is great because it's a great incentive to have less money that you have to have kind of cash out of your pocket. Two, they're going to give you amazing rates because they're buying down rates, some as low as 4.99 right now. And right now we're in the higher sixes, but there's options. And then, oh, yes, of course, how can I even forget this one? The incentives of even having just a lower price home in general. So they have something called spec homes. Spec homes are ready now homes. The builder said what they wanted to look like, what they should look like, picked out all the stuff. It'll be ready in 30 to 60 days, basically. Now, with a spec home, if it's getting closer to that timeline they needed to sell it by and completed by, it's already complete. Oh my gosh, the way that they slash prices during certain times of the year is wild. And if you want to know more about that, you should definitely reach out to me and we'll talk more about what times of year are the best bang for your buck with new construction because there are best times of year for new construction. And if you do the new construction route, if you'd like my new construction guide, I'm happy to share it. There's a lot of information on there and like what the process is like and what you should be prepared for and expect during that process. Um, but there's a lot of different ways to make homeownership possible for first time homebuyers. So please do not be overwhelmed by it. Honestly, if you are overwhelmed by it, let's meet. I love to do that. I just had another bride and groom. We already had a consultation and I was like, we'll grab ice cream. And we just talked over. I was like, let's go over the numbers again. I have a mortgage calculator. And so I'm like, I'm not a lender, not a lender. And I was like, I'm going to give you a high estimate on how much you're going to be paying for your home. And like literally seeing the calmness wash over them was amazing. And they won't even be ready until December. Like that's when they're getting married and that's when they want to be ready to buy. And I was like, please never think that you're bothering me. This is a huge financial decision. And I want to make sure that you have someone supporting you and your questions that you have. There's a lot of misinformation out there, and I want to make sure that I'm here for you to help you understand that process. So if you have questions about the home buying process, either first time home buyer, second time home buyer, third time, fourth, whatever you are, and wherever you're at in the home search or home sell process, I love to help. It's honestly one of my passions. It's something I'm very excited about all the time. And I would love to be a part of your journey and your chapter and your life of this, whether you end up buying a home through me here in Northeast Florida or you buy it somewhere else. And I have a great connection for you for someone just like me. But I'd love to help you guys out on that. I have more videos on my channel. about everything in St. Johns County, what it has to offer. If you have any questions or like this video, please like, subscribe, share with your friends if they're also in the same situation, and let's see how we can make home possible for you. Cheers.
Looking for more content on St. Johns County, what it's like living here, and honestly, another reason to live here? Like and subscribe. Did you subscribe?